What does joining Hip Hop Now's Patreon mean? It means supporting the kind of hip hop content that keeps you updated on the latest hip hop news and moves. It means supporting the production of content like That Time in Hip Hop and Hip Hop Now Reviews. It means you care about the conversation and preservation of hip hop music and culture. Hip Hop Now Patreon supporters get access to bonus content, merchandise, and more. Support the movement. Become a supporter of Hip Hop Now podcast today at patreon.com/Hip Hop Now.
Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, Redman gives fans an update on Muddy Waters 2. Before his death, Big Pun wanted to record with Eminem, and Jay-Z sold Kanye's masters to buy his own masters. Ooh, it's been a busy week. Let's do it.
Let's get right to the business.
Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone. Come to Hip Hop Podcast. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip-hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. Returning listeners, what it do, how you feeling, hope you staying safe, COVID-free, all that good stuff. New listeners, I'm glad you came through. Appreciate you. Hope you like the podcast enough to stick around and hit that like button, subscribe button. But most importantly, share this podcast with people you know enjoy this kind of content. Big shout out to the patrons over at patreon.com. And I want to send a special shout out to the latest patron over at patreon.com/Hip Hop Now, Fresh to Death, who came in at the My Summer Vacation level. There's all kinds of levels. If you want to support this podcast, all you got to do is visit the website, check them out. You can be a monthly donor. You can be a one-time donor. It doesn't matter. Or if you don't feel like it, so be it. But the importance of donating to the podcast is to help improve the podcast production-wise. I've already added things. Those who have become Patreon supporters of this podcast have already seen some of the things I've been developing since I started the Patreon podcast. So visit patreon.com/Hip Hop Now. And if you like, yo, dog, don't tell nobody. But I don't know how to spell Patreon. Don't worry, neither did I. But the link is in the description of this podcast you're listening to, wherever you're listening to it. It's there. It's everywhere. I am everywhere. Big shout out to allhiphop.com, XXLmagazine.com, hiphopdx.com, or should I say what? I'm not going to blow y'all up. And a couple of other places where I'm getting some of these stories from. Let's get right into the business, though. So Remy Ma was on Fat Joe's, Fat Joe just basically has quarantine interviews, and in a lot of cases, he doesn't only get a lot of the best guests because he gets a lot of guests that other people get, right? But he been getting some scoops. If you don't know what a scoop is, it's like when you find out something, right? You find out something in an interview, you basically get an exclusive, something that's being said that's maybe a bombshell or maybe interesting or maybe you never heard from your favorite artist before. And it's happening during an interview on his show. And Remy Ma appeared on his show and said that before Big Pun died, he wanted to collaborate with Eminem on a song. Here's what she said, and I quote, "That was his thing. He was like, I can't wait to get on a track with him. That was his goal." Now, I know. Some people hate Eminem. They hate everything about Eminem. Some of them just don't like his music. But there's a lot of people who like him, and there's even more MCs that respected him, including Big Pun. And honestly, forget all the politics of whether you like Eminem or not. When you think about those rhyming styles, the way Pun rhymes, the way Eminem rhymes, that's what Pun was excited for. They would have made something crazy. I mean, I thought it was already crazy to have Black Thought and Big Pun on a track, and you know what that sound like already. If you got the debut album, Capital Punishment, you already know what it is. But Eminem and Big Pun on the track would have probably been nuts. It would have been a bar fest. It would have been a rapidy rap fest. It would have been Rap God before Rap God. Man, rest in peace to Big Pun, you know what I'm saying? If only we could have had something like that. Um, but I mean, I guess it's one of those things similar to the Nas and Biggie collaboration we never got because Nas was too high to record, and it never happened, which is the sad part. But that's how things go sometimes. So this past week, for some reason, everyone was under the impression that Bismarcky was in a coma, and people were saying pray for him. Now, I remember Biz had got sick maybe a month or two back, and I think he was in a medically induced coma. But then he got out of it, and I heard he was getting well. So I don't know where this rumor started or where it came from, but just to say, hey yo, Biz is all right. So you can chill with your gifts and your memes and your reminiscing. Honestly, you should do that anyway because the brother's still here. Don't wait for him to die and then dive into Bismarcky. You should be doing that anyway. But unfortunately, especially when it comes to hip hop, that's a trend that I'm really not that fond of. Because it's like, oh man, Biz is, oh man, I remember when this came out, blah, 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 blah. Oh, he alive? All right, back to what I was doing. It's like he gotta die, you know what I'm saying? In order for people to really appreciate him. Like, we of course we all happy he's well. But these are the kind of moments, it was a scare. And I think it was probably dope for him to see the love he was getting in general from the hip hop community. But to say a man's in a coma when he's up, probably like, who said I was in a coma? You know what I'm saying? So Bismarcky is okay, y'all. If you didn't hear it anywhere else, Biz is doing okay. Rhapsody dropped a new single called 12 Problems, which is basically a play on Jay-Z's 99 Problems. Um, Honestly, I found out about it because I just happened to be dumbing through Apple Music. I use Spotify, so don't get excited. But I got the free Apple Music for a year, so I'm taking advantage of it while I have it. And I was like, oh, Rhapsody got a single. Let me check it out. I'm a big Rhapsody fan. And I gotta say, y'all, this is no shade towards Rhapsody. I thought her last album was excellent. I think that album was way more worthy of a Grammy nod than her previous work, Layla's Wisdom, which wasn't whack, but it just wasn't her the album that dropped last year. And I gotta say, I see why some people can't get into Rhapsody. Now, one thing I like that she's doing is she's trying to do more with her flow and the way she approaches her tracks. She's way more animated. Um, Similar to how she was on her last album, which I think helped a lot, to be honest. But this record's kind of corny. I'm gonna just keep it 100. I'm gonna keep it 100. It's kind of corny to me, and it doesn't have to be, Megan Thee Stallion. It doesn't have to be the greatest rap record of all time. It's serviceable, but you talking to somebody who is a Rhapsody fan before the Grammy nods, before she was on To Pimp a Butterfly, and I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't. This is the thing with Rhapsody. I don't know what her future is. Like, I can't see what her trajectory is. And I think that's because she's probably already peaked and given us her best work because she has a lot of dope material out there. And I don't think she's hot enough to do something like that, like a playoff of Jay-Z joint. I could be wrong. There could be way more people that like it than I'm assuming, but I don't see them. I don't see nobody talking about it. I mean, again, I stumbled across the single because I just happened to see it. I ain't hear nobody talking about it. I ain't hear anybody talking about it after they saw I was playing it. So again, this isn't to downplay her music in general or going forward because I don't know what that's going to sound like. I can only assume it's going to be dope, but this particular single just didn't do it for me. It really just didn't do it. So over on hiphopdx.com, this is the headline. Redman provides substantial Muddy Waters 2 album update. If you know me, you know how I feel about Redman's Muddy Waters. It is a classic. Do not debate me on that. You will lose. Let's read a little bit from the article. So, Redman has decided to push the release date back for his highly anticipated album, Muddy Waters 2, to follow up to the 1996 original. In April 2018, Redman told Hip Hop DX backstage at Red Rock Show he was planning to let the album rip that year, but plans clearly changed. I know because I feel like he's been talking about this album for like 10 years. Just like AZ with Do or Die too. Like I'm not interested anymore. What do we have? So here's a quote from Redman. The only thing now that's missing is me having a date and me rushing when they want me to put it out. I am able to move on my own time. Last time I talked to you, I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. A couple of months ago, I knew I was ready to put out the album, but COVID hit. I'm like, I want to be able to to be out there to promote the album, not sit from a couch doing interviews. I get what Redman's saying, but again, I feel like he's been teasing this album for 10 years, and this is the thing. Obviously, COVID, I agree with him. He want to promote the album. He don't just want to put it out and let it fizzle, right? He want to get out there, be seen, and really get into it. But we can't. It's a different world. And it just goes to show, and I feel this way about certain rappers, right? You got a lot of rappers that's sitting on heat, sitting on albums, sitting on collaborations. Now, I can understand when there's contractual situations where they can't put something out. But I'm really finding a lot of cats waiting and waiting and waiting for the right time, waiting and waiting for the right time. I'm going to say it again, waiting and waiting and waiting for the right time. And we lose interest as fans, right? Because the first time you tell us we're hyped, then when you start dropping singles, we start to feel like it's coming, but then it never drops. And then we're waiting for more, and you say it's almost done. I'm still cooking and blah, blah, blah. And it's 10 years later, and it's like, dog, you may still be working on an album in 10 years, but guess what happened in 10 years within some of your fans' lives? Some dudes done lost their job. Some dudes done got a new job, and they can't listen to hip hop because they ain't got no time to be listening to hip hop, or they not even checking for you. The only way they're finding out that there even is a Muddy Waters 2 being worked on is because they're listening to me. Hip Hop Now podcast available wherever you listen to podcasts. Uh, but, seriously though, I just feel like, I get it. He wants to promote it. I'm not really going to hate on that. But I think there was a time where he could have put it out, right? There was a moment where the hip hop game, young and old, was looking at Redman because I think he either had a freestyle out or he had a really funny video. That's what it was. He had a really funny video for a mixtape. And to me, the mixtape wasn't that good to me. And I kind of felt like he had momentum and it kind of stayed with that video that he put out, and then that was it. So I think sometimes like I couldn't imagine, obviously it's easy for me to say, but I couldn't imagine spending, so much time of my career, my life, like just waiting to push the button on an album when this is a different day and time, man. Like somebody like we've been waiting for Conway the Machine's debut album, but we got like 40 projects before we got the debut. So, and it was worth the wait, which is hard to imagine. And don't get me wrong, Redman has released songs and mixtapes here and there, but when you talk about a sequel to what people say arguably is your best album, you can't play with that kind of time because we need to know. Like it kind of happened with Raekwon with the whole Only Built for Cuban Links 2 when he was on Dr. Dre and all of that. Somehow they were able to get that momentum back. Maybe the timing was great. Now he's talking about Cuban Links 3. People got hyped. But the next time he says anything concrete, it got to be on the way. Like, because this is a different time. Dudes is dropping record after record after record. We're not just sitting idly by listening to your last album. We on to like 20 other dudes. So it is what it is. So if you've been under a rock, Kanye West has these moments on Twitter where he just starts posting and tweeting every 5 seconds. I follow him on Twitter. No, it doesn't mean I agree with anything he says. I've been on Twitter a very long time, so I was following Kanye before he said anything stupid. But also because of doing this podcast, I got to stay in the loop of what's going on. And if somebody's going to just randomly tweet nonsense and they want to, hip hop's biggest producers of all time and rappers, you kind of want to be in the loop. And man, he just kind of unloaded. I'm not going to go over everything, but here's one nugget for you. He put one of his Grammys, I think he has 21 of them, so whatever. But he put one of his Grammys in a toilet and pissed on it. It's online. You can go and watch it. I'm not going to link it here because who wants to watch that? But he did that. But one other thing he did was he showed, or it was like a screenshot or photos basically of over 100 pages from his contracts with Universal Music Group / Sony. And there was some interesting revelations from that. Now he talked about how whack his deal was and the ups and downs. But I was watching some of the Breakfast Club and I totally agree with what they were saying. How many dudes in the history of the music industry, forget rap, got to get jerked before cats know they shouldn't sign certain deals, right? How many cats got to get their record deal to let find a lawyer you trust? It's just like a long-standing thing of, a long system of, well, I'll recommend you some lawyers and they all be the homeboys of the label. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the proof is in the pudding. If you've ever watched Unsung, there's no reason why you should tomorrow turn around and sign a bad record deal unless you are just that desperate. There's no reason. But apparently Kanye West did also. But one of the nuggets that came out of it, right, was people saying that Jay-Z sold Kanye's masters to Def Jam in order to buy his masters. Now, for some people who are like, you mean like slavery? Yeah, kind of, but no, not how you think it. So masters is basically the original copies of your music, right? Let's say you make one song and it's the biggest hit ever. It breaks every record ever. You're only known for that one song. But the thing is who owns it, right? So whatever that original recording, who has stake, who owns that original recording? And it's not just the original recording. It's not like, oh, well, whatever. They make copies. But that's the thing. If you own the master copy, like the master key that opens all the locks, if you own the master copy that's used to distribute the album throughout the years, you know what I'm saying? You benefit off of all of it. There are a lot of artists who own their masters. So they make every dime off of, obviously people have to get paid that collaborate. Don't get me wrong. It's not like Jay-Z owns his masters and he's also getting money for the beats that was on the album. But when it comes to, the song itself as a writer and sole owner of the song, he gets everything. So what's being said here is Kanye West has a catalog or masters on Def Jam that Jay-Z owned through Rockefeller, I believe. And I don't know all the details, but that's the assumption, right? Because you would say, well, how could he sell Kanye's masters to get his own? He would have to own Kanye's masters. Well, maybe he did because Kanye was on Rockefeller. And, when the split happened, did that go to Jay-Z? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know all the little details. But the point of the matter is the text reads this. Kanye's contract summary. Apart from the inducent, which, did I read that correctly? Correct me if I'm wrong, which Kanye had to sign to get his advances. This shows Jay-Z sold the masters of 6 Kanye West albums just so he could get his own back. He did so knowing Def Jam won't sell them back to Kanye in the future. Now, this is coming from academics sharing this. I want to know what y'all think. Leave your comments in the comment section below, or you can hit me up on social media, Twitter or Instagram, to let me know what you think about that. If you heard this on this podcast and you got some thoughts about that, what do you think about that, right? Yeah, they're supposed to be boys. Yeah, they were business partners. But it's kind of like you and your homie being slaves, right? And in order to buy my freedom, I work out a deal to sell you to them. So you will always be a slave, but now I'm free. You see, that's kind of what it feels like, right? When you think about it. But I tell people this all the time. It's not the moral industry, it's the record industry. And these kinds of things happen all of the time. I don't care how close you think they are. I don't care how many songs they have together that you like and how you feel like it's kind of cruddy for Jay-Z to do that. It is the way of the record industry. It's all about wheeling and dealing. And a lot of times, there's no real loyalty because a lot of what Kanye's rant was with the record labels in general and his deal with Universal was, the fact that, they got these whack deals and they just basically jerking people. And as you can tell, this is going to be the last topic because this is pretty juicy. This is pretty juicy though. And there's not much else that happened that's not involving Kanye, which, he also demanded apologies from J. Cole and a couple of people, but whatever. But the thing that people fail to realize, like when you just say that, like, yo, Jay-Z sold, Kanye West's masters to Def Jam so he can buy his own masters, and Def Jam will never sell Kanye's masters to Kanye. Why would they do that? They're too lucrative. Kanye is a shell of himself as an MC, as a person, as a producer in a lot of respects, even though he's still kind of going a little bit with some beats from what he was, but he's still big. He's still huge. No matter how many people don't like whatever, they still follow everything he say. I mean, we talking about him now. And that usually turns into people buying your music. Def Jam is not giving that man his stuff. He's just not. And then Jay-Z's partly to blame, right? Because if Jay-Z owned the masters of Kanye West, maybe Kanye could buy him from Jay-Z. Maybe it would have been different. So on a one hand is foul, but also is par for the course, because you could look at it like this. When Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog, it came along with other artists, right? And some artists, I don't even think he sold them their masters to them, back to them. I think he gave, like with Little Richard, he gave him his masters. So Little Richard, who pioneered rock and roll, never owned his masters, never really got the recognition he deserved. Michael Jackson comes up years later, has enough money to buy the Beatles and gets your masters as a consolation prize along with some other people. And he just gives it back to him. Michael Jackson is a different breed, man. He just played differently. It shows you how big Michael Jackson was. But the thing is Jay-Z wanted his masters. And I guess he was going to get them by any means necessary. And again, in some respects, yeah, it's kind of foul when you think about it. But in other respects, it's like, it's a part of the record industry to do these deals. And everybody knows these deals are bad, generally bad. The only time they're remotely in your favor is when you get it popping yourself, and when they start sniffing around because they want to sign you to deals, you negotiate. Because if you already getting rich and you already popular and huge, you don't really need them. You know what I'm saying? They need you at that point. So you should be able to dictate. And I will say there's artists throughout, the years who have come into situations like that, like MC Hammer. He got it popping before he got a deal, so his deal was nice. You know what I'm saying? Soulja Boy did the same thing. Who else did that? I think 21 Savage did something similar. You know what I'm saying? Like, the smart ones know what to do, and there's a lot of people who own their masses. Like, on a Breakfast Club, they was name dropping a couple of people who did, like Rihanna, somebody else. I don't know if it's Scarface, somebody else in hip hop. I can't remember who it was exactly, but not everybody does. Some of your artists, they sitting at home and their song come on a McDonald's commercial, and they not getting a dime because they don't own their masters. The owner of the masters can make decisions on what appears where. Yo, we want to use, Jay-Z in my lifetime in a film that's being made, this huge film that's being made. Jay-Z gets paid. Kanye, we want to use Gold Digger in this new movie called Digging for Gold coming out, or Marvel. Who gets paid? Def Jam. Sure, Kanye probably gets something, but Kanye don't have a say. He could be like, man, I don't want my stuff in McDonald's. He don't get a say because Def Jam owns that music. So again, it's kind of sad when you think about it, but it's not like a lot of what Kanye was saying is untrue or stupid or whatever. I mean, but at the end of the day, he's been in the record industry enough to know, in and around the record industry before he even blew up, to know that what the Q-Tip say, you know what I'm saying? Record company people are shady. I mean, it is what it is. And it's not necessarily the people. Let me not just say the people, because there's people I know who are in and around it who aren't foul, but it's the nature of the beast. And it's kind of like, what is your decision going to be? Most people want to get rich and be able to retire from the record industry. And some people wind up hustling for the rest of their lives. either trying to get it or trying to maintain it. So, public service announcement. I've said this on numerous podcasts. If you're trying to rap, sing, be an executive, whatever, understand the nature of the industry you're getting involved with. Even if it seems like everything is the complete opposite of the shark level stuff you've heard, always keep your eyes on the prize, on the ball, whatever way you want to phrase it. Because at the end of the day, you know you're going to lose some, but you'll probably win more because your awareness is up. And you'll be more sharper and smarter at the decision making. Because there's a lot of snakes, sharks, all that in the record industry. But it is what it is, man. Leave your comments in the comment section below about any of these topics that we discussed today. I always check the comments. And please review the podcast wherever you are, where they allow reviews, because that also helps out the podcast. Another way to help out is to visit patreon.com/hiphopnow and become a supporter of this show. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at VegasWorldINC. And please know that this podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. It doesn't matter if it's an Apple device, an Android device, your computer, whatever the case may be. All you got to do is search for the words Hip Hop Now Podcast. Hit that subscribe button and stay locked in. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.
Drop it on the random.